We continue our reading of Caitanya Caritamrita. We are on the first chapter. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Since we belong to this chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this edition of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrita will contain nothing newly manufactured by our tiny brains, but only remnants of food originally eaten by the Lord himself. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that he has not given anything new in this book. He's only telling us whatever has been written and what has been heard by the other devotees. And that is the way that spiritual knowledge should be passed. We do not have to manufacture any new ideas, because Krishna is God, he's the absolute truth, and we are his eternal parts and parcels. That is, that's our true position, and that's what the devotees keep on telling us, and that we have a loving relationship with Krishna. We do not have to make up anything. We just repeat what we hear, and that is Srila Prabhupada's credit, that he did that, and he told us also to do that. Not that we try to become famous for ourselves and try to make up any new philosophy. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not belong to the mundane plane of the three qualitative modes. He belongs to the transcendental plane, beyond the reach of the imperfect sense perception of a living being. So Lord Chaitanya, he is Krishna himself. And so his activities are not affected. They are not under the control of Rajogun, Tamogun, Sattvagun, the three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. His activities are all transcendental. Even the most erudite mundane scholar cannot approach the transcendental plane unless he submits himself to transcendental sound with a receptive mood. For in that mood only can one realize the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What will be described herein, therefore, has nothing to do with the experimental thoughts created by the speculative habits of the inert mind. So how do we approach the Caitanya Caritamrita? We hear it with submission, because this is all transcendental words. So we try to understand, we hear it, we try to understand what is being said. Because if we simply close our heart, then we won't be able to receive this message. If we are just going to mentally speculate, then we won't be able to receive this message. The subject matter of this book is not a mental concoction, but a factual, spiritual experience that one can realize only by accepting the line of disciplic succession described above. So what we are going to read is not fiction. It's not a novel. Like there are so many novels we hear, and then so many fantastic things happen in a novel, but those are all fictitious. This is not fiction. It's the truth. And it's coming from the parampara. One pure devotee to the other in the line is giving us this knowledge, which is carefully preserved. For example, a mango fruit, if somebody climbs the tree, the mango fruit, and he throws it down on the tree, on the floor, we are not going to have any mango. It's going to become, it's going to break immediately, smash. So how do we get the mango? It has to be carefully passed from one person who's high up there to the lower one, like that. And then we can have the mango in its correct form. So similarly, the transcendental knowledge is confidential. So it has to be handled carefully. Any deviation from that line will bewilder the reader's understanding of the mystery of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, which is a transcendental literature meant for the postgraduate study of one who has realized all the Vedic literatures, such as the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra, and the natural commentaries such as Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. So we are stepping into the realm of postgraduate. So Bhagavad Gita is like doing our undergrad, then Srimad Bhagavatam is graduate, and Caitanya Caritamrita is postgraduate. So it's even a higher level of knowledge. This edition of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita is presented for the study of sincere scholars who are really seeking the absolute truth. So if we really want to know what's the truth, not what our idea of the truth, not that the truth according to me should be like this, then that's not sincerity. But if we really have the sincere desire to know what is the absolute truth, it is not the arrogant scholarship of a mental speculator, but a sincere effort to serve the order of a superior authority, whose service is the life and soul of this humble effort. So Prabhupada is saying that this is not his mental speculation. It is just he sincerely trying to serve his Guru Maharaj. It does not deviate even slightly from the revealed scriptures, and therefore anyone who follows in the disciplic line will be able to realize the essence of this book simply by the method of oral reception. So we just have to submissively hear this message, attentively and submissively. That is the way to hear transcendental message, to receive transcendental knowledge, if we want to understand the truth. The first chapter of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita begins with 14 Sanskrit verses that describe the absolute truth. So what is the absolute truth? We are all asking, what's the truth? But we are so, in our experience, whatever we experience, we see that it is so temporary. So how can it be true? If it changes, how can it be true? So always the research is that, what's the truth? What is it that never changes? So we will find out what's the absolute truth. Absolute truth means it's never going to change. It's eternal. Then the next 3 Sanskrit verses describe the principal deities of Vrindava, namely Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Radha Govinda Dev, and Shri Radha Gopinath Ji. The first of the 14 verses is a symbolic representation of the supreme truth. And the entire first chapter is in actuality devoted to this single verse, which describes Lord Chaitanya in his 6 different transcendental expansions. So if we want to know the truth, then we continue the hearing of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. Our minds are so fertile, we have so much imagination, we make up so many things, we hear so many things, but are they true? Or are they just relative truths? So if we want to know the absolute truth, we continue reading Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. The first manifestation described is the spiritual master who appears in 2 plenary parts called the initiating spiritual master and instructing spiritual master. The initiating spiritual master is the one who connects us, who gives us the diksha into the discipline, into the parampara system. And the instructing spiritual master is whose guidance we are following, whose instructions we are following. They are identical because both of them are phenomenal manifestations of the supreme truth. So there is no difference between the initiating spiritual master and the instructing spiritual master. We should give them equal respect because they both are speaking to us about the absolute truth. A spiritual master who's coming truly in the line of disciplic succession. So for example, if we want to really get a certificate, as I was just explaining yesterday, if we really want to become a doctor, if I really want to become a doctor and I want to practice and really heal patients, then I need to enroll myself in a medical university, which is recognized by the Board of Education, that if I take the effort and the time and the money to study in this university, I will get a graduate degree, which will then allow me to practice this knowledge that I'm hearing. So that is my responsibility, that I learn from a university which is recognized by this board. But if I do not do that and I just go to any, just someone who says they are recognized, but is not recognized by the Board of Education, I'm wasting my time. So that research work is each and every individual's responsibility. We have to understand where we are hearing from, who we are hearing from. Is this person authorized in this particular subject matter? They might be very good in another subject matter, but they might not be the one to know about this particular subject matter. You know, for example, if I have my mother, she's a great cook. If I ask her about cooking, very good, she'll give me very useful hints. But if I ask her about some complex math equations, and if I follow her advice, what's going to happen to me? So I can follow her advice for one thing, but I can't follow her advice for everything. Similarly, who we are hearing the spiritual knowledge from is very important. We need to do our own research. The next described are the devotees. Is that clear? Because that's a very important point. Yes? No? Sleeping? Yeah. Okay. Next described are the devotees who are divided into two classes, namely the apprentices and the graduates. So the devotees are also, because each devotee is on their own level, you know, not all devotees are on the same level. Next are the incarnations, avatars of the Lord, who are explained to be non-different from the Lord. So all the avatars that come from Krishna, they have equal power as Krishna. They have equal power, only they will exhibit as much power as is needed for that particular pastime. For example, the powerhouse can supply electricity, can power even a small bulb or a great industrial bulb. But because in our house, we do not need a big industrial bulb, we just need a small bulb. So that's what the powerhouse is supplying. But it doesn't mean that it cannot supply electricity to a big industrial light. It can. So same way, all the incarnations of the Lord are non-different. These incarnations are considered in three divisions: incarnation of the potency of the Lord, incarnations of his qualities, and incarnations of his authority. In this connection, Lord Sri Krishna's direct manifestations and his manifestations for transcendental pastimes are discussed. So we will be reading this further. Next considered are the potencies of the Lord, which are three principal manifestations, of which three principal manifestations are described: the consorts in the kingdom of God Vaikuntha, the queens of Dwarkadam, and highest of all, the damsels of Rajdam. So Krishna's potencies, his internal potency, they are in three of them, which are the main. One are all the Lakshmi Devi who was there in Vaikuntha with Lord Narayan. Lakshmi Devi is also, she's the energy of the Lord, the internal energy. And then the queens of Dwarkadam, and the highest of them are the gopis. The gopis. And the principal gopi is Radharani. Finally, there is the Supreme Lord himself, who is the fountainhead of all these manifestations. So where does everything comes from? Comes from Krishna, the Supreme Lord himself. Is that okay? So we'll stop here for today. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki